I would like to share with you one of the stories about Jesus. So I was delighted when the Adult Discussion Task Force had as one of their highest priorities, Jesus in unity. Jesus in unity. When I was in one of the Kansas City Unity churches, I went and watched to observe and learn about a very successful youth ed program at a very large Kansas City Unity church. And I sat in on a Sunday school of 12 four-year-olds. It was that big that every age had their own classroom. And so I watched how the teacher had them all do this little routine, teaching them to meditate, and by saying, how many ohms shall we do today? They said 4, let's do 4. So they all went, oh, in their high little squeaky voices, om, 4 times. So cute. And then, I thought, wow, they're teaching the children to meditate so easily. Then she did her routine questions, which was their way of remembering Unity's teachings. And she said, who is Jesus? And I thought, oh, I wonder what they're going to say. They all knew the answer. Jesus is our way shower. Way shower. That's their answer. They got it. And so that is Unity's teaching about Jesus. Jesus is our way shower. We understand that Jesus is one of the enlightened ones. Jesus got it. Jesus' consciousness was this big, if further than that. Maybe ours is this big sometimes. Maybe it's this big. But Jesus got it. And that's why he could say, I and the Father are one. So he was aware that he could think big. One of the miracles about Jesus, and the only one besides the resurrection that is written in all 4 of the canonical Gospels, including John, is the story of the Loaves and Fishes. This mosaic comes from an ancient church near the Sea of Galilee, where they are very proud of that story, because that's where it apparently happened. The Sea of Galilee was the center of commerce of the area where Jesus did his ministry most of the time. And fish were the economic mainstay. So that's a early Christian 2,000-year-old mosaic. The story is very similar in all 4 Gospels. It goes something like this. Jesus had attracted crowds of people. Thousands of people were coming to him for teaching and healing. And it turned out to be a 3-day marathon. It was getting dark, and the people were getting hungry and needed to go home, and the disciples were concerned. And they said, if they don't go home soon, it's going to be too dark to travel. And they went to Jesus and said, we got to do something. You got to send these people home. We don't have food, we don't have shelter, nothing to accommodate these people. And Jesus said, just let them be. He said, let's feed them. And they said, what are we going to do? Spend 1,000 denarii to go get some food and bring it in, catered? And they said, no. Jesus said, no. Just check out what you have. And they checked, and the nearby, think of thousands of people, they got one little boy who had some loaves and some fishes. One account, and in the Gospels of Mark and Matthew, they've written this account twice. So apparently it happened more than once. Very similar stories. One account says 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Okay? So 5 loaves and 2 fishes and 5,000 men. In the other account it says 4,000 people. So big masses. Jesus says, sit them all down. Have them sit down in groups. He took these loaves and he took the fish and he gave thanks and broke them and divided them up and gave them to the disciples and said, go feed everybody. And there was enough. In fact, there were leftovers. And Jesus said, don't let one crumb go to waste. Bring it back to the center again. So they collected leftovers. And after that, Jesus went to the mountain to pray. So I've heard this story a lot growing up in a Bible-based church. And my skeptic Western mind says, how could that happen? I'm sure you've thought the same. How could that possibly happen? And so a lot of people have said it's just symbolic. It's a metaphor. And they go in that direction. But it's a very important story. It's so important that many ministries have named their ministry of giving to the poor, Loaves and Fishes. Google it. I Googled it to try to find out where it was in the Bible. I Googled Loaves and Fishes. I got all kinds of ministries that give to the poor. It's a very common story and a very important story. So when I think about it, I often get tripped up. I've often in the past gotten tripped up saying, how can I make sense of this? Pat Johnson happened to send me a video on Facebook the other day that was just the icing on the cake of this talk. It was a video that talked about quantum physics. And it just helped me to play with miracle a little bit. The thing that I want to focus on in the story is that Jesus took and gave thanks. And giving thanks is a big piece. Giving thanks is elevating your awareness to appreciation and abundance rather than lack and fear. So giving thanks is that attitude thing. So I'm sorry I can't say who said these things because the video didn't identify the speakers. So ask Pat to forward it to you. Doesn't identify any of the people. But it referenced Max Planck, who is the father of quantum physics. It says that quantum physics has revealed what the ancient masters knew. And he was referring to, how did the pyramids get built? How did Stonehenge get built? How did Jesus break 5 loaves up and feed 5,000? Quantum physics is helping us understand it. The concept of substance being matter arose from the philosophy of Aristotle. But way before that, it was understood that substance is vibration. And now we have modern technology that can show that. When a singer sings and sand is on this vibratory thing, it takes the sand and the sound shakes the sand around into a beautiful, sacred geometric pattern. Sound, vibration. And then the video said, the Bible knew that. The Word in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Word is sound. And so I also heard in the video the idea that we think that substance is matter rather than substance being vibration. That idea we hooked onto, and it has fed our society's attitude about grabbing for things and materialism. Because we think that we can measure wealth by things. But actually, we can measure wealth by vibratory level. Now, remember, we're talking about Jesus breaking 5 loaves up and feeding 5,000. If Jesus had a consciousness of real reality is vibration, not that piece of bread that he was breaking, but what was behind it, then he could think with the big consciousness and know that it's possible to feed so many with so little, because he didn't see it as so little. He knew the energy behind it. So if we in our daily lives perceive with only our five senses, we will perceive a limited universe. Our true consciousness doesn't exist in our brains and our bodies. It exists in our intent. And so you can imagine if you amplify the frequency, which would mean raise your height of awareness, appreciation is way up there as opposed to fear. If we can amplify the frequency, we can change the structure of matter. Max Planck is quoted, and he is quoted by Wayne Dyer in this video. There is no matter as such. Max Planck died in 1947, so he had very early ideas, and that just happens to be the same time period of life as Charles Fillmore, founder of Unity, wrote some of his stuff. And if you want to read, go to his book, Atom Smashing Power of Mind. He talks about this stuff that only now quantum physics has the courage to actually tell us about, or it's getting out onto the YouTubes. So here's Max Planck's writing. There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings a particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume beyond this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. The mind is the matrix of all matter. This is a scientist that is speaking of a consciousness and an intelligent mind behind all matter. Charles Fillmore liked to use the word back of. He would say, divine mind is back of all matter. And that's how he could speak about and manifest prosperity during the Depression. So in the video, it also talks about golf ball-sized consciousness. The man speaks and says, if you have a golf ball-sized consciousness, that's about this big, right? When you read a book, you'll have a golf ball-size understanding of it. When you look out, a golf ball-size awareness. And when you wake up in the morning, a golf ball-size wakefulness. But if you could expand that consciousness so that when you read the book, you'll have more understanding. And when you look out, you'll have more awareness. And when you wake up, you'll have more awakening. He said, there is an ocean of pure, vibrant consciousness inside each one of us. It's right at the source of mind, thought, and matter. So, if quantum physics is telling us things that we never thought before when we were in the Einstein theory of matter, if we can expand our understanding to really think that it's all about vibration and we can manipulate matter by intent, if we can get there, we can begin to possibly accept this miracle of Jesus being able to feed the 5,000. I celebrate quantum physics. It is affirming what New Thought has been teaching for 100 years. But there's another whole way to look at this story, and that's through metaphysical Bible interpretation. The idea of looking at any of these stories in the Bible, whether they be the miracles or parables or ancient stories such as Moses or Abraham, the idea is to see each one of the characters in the story as an element of ourselves, sort of like Jungian dream interpretation. So Jesus is a character, the disciples are a character. And the disciples that are named in this story are Philip and Andrew. And some of you might know something about the 12 powers. Charles Fillmore also developed, and I also got permission from the adult discussion brainstorm that says they want to learn about 12 powers. Yay! So the 12 powers are like the chakras. Andrew and Philip correspond with dominion and strength. Andrew is strength. Think of it as located in your lower back. That's where you can, that's what you use to stand up with, right? The lower back, strength. And Philip, dominion or power in the throat chakra. Andrew and Philip are the ones who say, what are we going to do? Buy a bunch of food and have it brought in? And they say, we can't do this. Got to send them home. Jesus, the character Jesus, always represents the I am consciousness. Now, bring that into you or this church family as a metaphor. We, individually and collectively, have the I am consciousness always here with us if we can remember, get it into our consciousness that we do have that divinity, that power. And that I am consciousness knows that it is one with the Father. And with the Father, all things are possible. So it gently reminds the other little voices in our head, Andrew and Philip and all the other disciples, you don't have to be afraid. Let's remember what's the main thing. The main thing is all things are possible. And you don't have to operate from fear. Send them away. We can't feed them. It's getting dark. What are we going to do? Those are all the little voices that happen when we go into fear mode. And we can remember that calm, still, small voice in us that's always there to say, don't be afraid. The Jesus voice. The I am. And Jesus simply breaks it, the bread, gives thanks, elevates his level of consciousness to appreciation, and knows it's possible. And we can do that in our little conversations all the time, in our own personal lives, as well as in the life of this church family. Just go to a higher vibrational level. Choose a better feeling thought. Last week I shared a quote with you that I said, and when I spoke to Dick Allen about it, he said, please write it down for us. So I put it on the back side of this half sheet that helps you get into the conference call. This is a quote from Abraham. I said it last week. It's just as valuable this week and every day. It's not your work to make anything happen. It's your work to dream it and let it happen. The law of attraction will make it happen. You see, the law of attraction is that vibrational thing. And when you bring your vibrational level up, you attract to you things that are in the same vibrational space. If you're down in fear, you attract that vibrational stuff. If you're up in appreciation, you attract, not really attract like a magnet, but that's what you end out flowing with, that stuff. You feel right about it, and that's what happens in your life. It just comes through. Continuing, in your joy, you create something, and then you maintain your vibrational harmony with it, and the universe brings it about. That's the promise of the law of attraction. And it's a law. It's a universal law. That's why it can be a promise. Laws don't change their minds. So we just keep continuing to hold that vibrational level and watch it unfold. It's love or fear. That's really the only two emotions we have. I choose love. And I choose to see it unfold. One of the quotes in that video, it says, if you amplify the frequency, the structure of the matter will change. So let's get amped up and watch this stuff unfold. Not a finger has to be lifted. Just stay in that frequency. Now, before I end and we begin our time of offering collection, I want to share with you a letter that came to the church this week, to Chad. If he was speaking, he'd be sharing it. Dear Chad, a few months ago, I was invited to give a talk at a psychology convention. It was quite an honor to be asked. A few days ago, some mail was forwarded to me, and among the letters was a check for $1,000, an honorarium for my presentation. The person who had invited me to speak had never mentioned any payment, so the receipt of this check was a complete surprise. It was a random event. Found money, manna from heaven. I had no idea what to do with it. It was been sitting on my desk for a few days, waiting for a purpose. And today, my wife and I learned of the recent financial needs of the church. We thought during the service. We want to emphasize, this gift is not from us. It just happens to pass through us. We certainly don't want any recognition for it. If you want to thank someone, thank him. And inside the letter was a check for $1,000. So thank you all for holding that vibrational level of hope and trusting in the universe. And we know it's coming. We know it's unfolding in its right and perfect way. Thank you. Namaste.